At the will reading, Mom gave my sister $30 million and left me absolutely nothing. This story that seemed impossible actually happened to me. I was so shocked when it happened. Let me tell you about it. Come along with me as we begin. I sat in that leather chair smelling the old wooden dust of the lawyer's office. My sister Valerie sat across from me with this smile on her face, like she had already won something. And me, I felt like a ghost at my own mother's funeral. But what Valerie did not know, what none of us knew, was that Mom had been watching everything for years, and she had prepared something that would change everything in that room. Before I take you back to that day, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. If you have ever felt invisible in your own family, hit that subscribe button, because this story is for you. Now let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Nathan Brooks. I am 35 years old, and I make furniture with my hands for a living. I know that does not sound like much to some people, but it is honest work, and it is mine. I grew up in Whitefish Bay, just outside Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in a big house that always felt cold to me, even in summer. My father was Richard Brooks. He built a construction company from nothing, starting with just a pickup truck and a toolbox when he was 22 years old. By the time I was born, Brooks Construction was one of the biggest names in the Milwaukee area. Dad built shopping centers, office buildings, and apartment complexes. But despite all that success, he never lost touch with working with his hands. My mother was Eleanor Brooks, though everyone called her Ellie. She used to be an elementary school teacher before she married Dad. After that, she quit teaching and took over managing the family finances. She was smart with money, I will give her that. But she was also smart about other things I would not understand until much later. Then there was my sister Valerie. She was 4 years older than me, which meant by the time I was old enough to really know her, she was already a teenager who wanted nothing to do with her little brother. Valerie was everything I was not. She was loud where I was quiet. She was social where I preferred solitude. She knew how to work a room, how to make people like her, how to say exactly what someone wanted to hear. And Mom loved her for it. I remember being 8 years old, sitting at the dinner table while Mom went on and on about Valerie's piano recital. How beautiful she played, how all the other parents complimented her, how Valerie was going to do great things one day. I just sat there eating my mashed potatoes, waiting for someone to ask about my day. No one did. But Dad, he was different. Every Saturday morning, while Mom took Valerie to ballet class or piano lessons or whatever activity she had that week, Dad would take me to his workshop in the garage. It was not a fancy space, just some old wooden benches, a few power tools, and sawdust everywhere. But to me, it was heaven. Dad taught me how to hold a hammer when I was 6. By 8, I could use a handsaw. By 10, I was helping him build a bookshelf for the living room. I still remember the smell of that workshop, the pine and oak and cedar all mixed together. The sound of the table saw humming, the feeling of sawdust between my fingers. One Saturday, I must have been about 9, I was struggling to sand down a piece of walnut for a jewelry box I was making for Mom's birthday. I kept going against the grain, leaving scratches everywhere. I was so frustrated I wanted to cry. Dad knelt down beside me, took my hands in his big calloused ones, and guided them along the wood. He said, "Nathan, you have the hands of a craftsman. Never let anyone tell you that working with your hands is less than working with your head. A man who can build something real, something you can touch and use and pass down to your children, that man has something no amount of money can buy." I did not fully understand what he meant back then, but I never forgot those words. The thing about Valerie was that she was not a bad person, not exactly. She was just raised to believe she was special. And when everyone around you treats you like you are better than everyone else, you start to believe it. Mom invested everything in Valerie. The best private schools, the most expensive clothes, piano lessons, ballet lessons, horseback riding lessons, French tutoring. If there was something that might give Valerie an advantage, Mom made sure she had it. I got hand-me-down clothes from my cousin in public school. Mom said it was because boys did not need all that fancy stuff that I would be fine. And maybe she was right. Maybe I was fine. But it still hurt, watching your mother pour everything she had into your sibling while you got the leftovers. There was this one Christmas when I was 12. Valerie was 16, and she had been begging for this designer purse all year. I do not even remember the brand, just that it cost more than $1,000. Christmas morning there, it was under the tree wrapped in gold paper with a big red bow. My gift that year was a set of woodworking tools. Do not get me wrong, I love those tools. I used them for years. But I also knew they cost about $80 total. And I was not stupid. I could do the math. Mom caught me looking at the price tag on Valerie's purse later that day. She pulled me aside and said, "Nathan, your sister has different needs than you. She is going to be out in the world meeting important people. She needs to look the part. You understand, do not you?" I nodded because that is what I always did. I nodded and I understood, and I kept my mouth shut. But Dad must have seen something in my face that night because after dinner, he took me back out to the workshop. He pulled out this beautiful piece of cherry wood he had been saving and said, "How about we make something special, just you and me?" We spent the next 3 months building a rocking chair together. Every Saturday, every spare moment we had. By the time it was finished, it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. And when I sat in that chair running my hands over the smooth armrests, I felt richer than Valerie with her $1,000 purse. The day my world shattered was a Tuesday in April. I was 17 years old, a junior in high school, sitting in calculus class trying to stay awake. The intercom crackled, and the secretary's voice came through asking me to report to the principal's office. I remember walking down that hallway, my sneakers squeaking on the linoleum, wondering what I had done wrong. When I got to the office, the principal was standing there with this look on his face that I had never seen before. Soft, sad. "Your mother is here to pick you up," he said. "There has been a family emergency. Mom was in the parking lot sitting in her car with the engine running. I got in, and she did not say anything at first. She just started driving. Her hands were shaking on the steering wheel. 'It is your father,' she finally said. There was an accident at the job site. His heart. They tried everything they could. The rest of that day is a blur. I remember the hospital, the fluorescent lights, the smell of disinfectant. I remember a doctor in blue scrubs saying words I could not process. Massive coronary, did not suffer, gone before he hit the ground. I remember standing next to a bed where my father lay covered by a white sheet, and I remember thinking that this had to be a mistake. Dad was strong. Dad was invincible. Dad could not be gone, but he was. The funeral was 3 days later. It rained the whole time, which felt right somehow. The whole neighborhood came out. Business partners, employees, friends I never knew Dad had. They all stood around his grave with black umbrellas talking about what a good man he was. What a loss this was for the community. Valerie cried beautifully. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than my entire suit, and she dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, and everyone gathered around to comfort her. I stood at the back of the crowd holding a small chisel that Dad had given me for my 15th birthday. It was the first tool he ever let me keep as my own. I held it so tight that day that I cut my palm, but I did not even notice until later. After the funeral, after everyone had gone home and the house was quiet, I went out to the workshop. I sat in the rocking chair we had built together, and I cried until I could not breathe. That was the only time I let myself cry for him. After that night, I packed the tears away somewhere deep, and I have not found them since. Mom changed after Dad died. Maybe it was grief, maybe it was something that had always been there, but Dad had kept in check. Either way, the mother I knew before was gone, replaced by someone colder, more focused, more calculating. The first thing she did was sell the company. Dad had always planned to pass Brooks Construction down to me someday. He used to talk about it all the time, how he would teach me the business, how we would work side by side. But within 6 months of his death, Mom had found a buyer and sold everything. $18 million. That is what my father's life work was worth. $18 million that went straight into Mom's bank account. She never asked me how I felt about it. Never asked if maybe I wanted to keep even a small part of what Dad had built. She just sold it like it was an old car she did not need anymore. The second thing she did was start planning Valerie's future with even more intensity than before. College applications, SAT prep courses, campus visits. It was like Valerie was her retirement plan, and she was investing everything she had. And me, I became invisible. Mom stopped asking about my grades. She stopped coming to my school events, not that she had come to many before. She stopped looking at me during dinner, stopped including me in conversations. I was just the other person who lived in the house. The summer after I graduated high school, I asked Mom if she could help me pay for college. I had been accepted to a state school, nothing fancy, but I needed help with tuition. She looked at me like I had asked her for a kidney. "Nathan," she said, "you are a man now. Your father would have wanted you to stand on your own 2 feet. I am sure you will figure something out." I was 18 years old, had maybe $300 in the bank, and my mother was worth nearly $20 million. And she would not give me a dime. That night, I packed a bag, loaded my truck with my tools, and drove away from that house. I found a cheap apartment in a rough part of town, got a job as a carpenter's assistant, and started my life from scratch. Valerie, meanwhile, went off to Northwestern University in Chicago. Mom bought her a condo near campus, a brand new car, and covered every penny of her tuition. She probably spent more on Valerie's going away party than I made in my first year of working. I did not complain. What was the point? Some kids get everything handed to them, and some kids have to fight for every inch. I just happened to be the second kind. And honestly, looking back, maybe that was the best thing that could have happened to me. The years after I left home were hard but good. I worked for a master carpenter named Frank Patterson for 5 years, learning everything I could about the craft. Frank was a gruff old man who barely said 10 words a day, but his hands could make wood sing. He taught me things my father never had the chance to: advance joinery techniques, how to read the grain of different woods, how to see the finished piece inside a raw plank. When I was 23, I opened my own shop. Nothing fancy, just a small space in an industrial area with a hand-painted sign that said Brooks Woodcraft. The first year, I barely made enough to cover rent. The second year was better. By year 3, I was getting commissions from all over the state. That was also the year I met Margaret. She worked at a bakery 2 doors down from my shop. I used to go in there every morning for coffee and a muffin. And every morning, this woman with flour in her hair and the warmest smile I had ever seen would take my order. It took me 4 months to work up the courage to ask her name. "Margaret Ann Sullivan," she said. "And you are the quiet one who makes all that noise with the saws next door." We went on our first date that weekend. By the end of the year, I knew I was going to marry her. By the next year, I did. Our wedding was small, 20 people in a park, Margaret in a white sundress. She made herself me in the only suit I owned. We had our reception at a friend's backyard with a potluck dinner and a playlist on someone's phone. It was the happiest day of my life. Mom was invited. She did not come. She said she had a charity gala that weekend that she could not miss. Valerie did not come either. She was busy with work, or so she said. Margaret held my hand when I got the call from Mom's assistant. The actual assistant, not even Mom herself, saying they would not be attending. She did not say anything, just squeezed my fingers and kissed my cheek. That was worth more than their presence ever could have been. 2 years later, our son Lucas was born. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and lungs that could wake the dead. I held him in the hospital room, this tiny, perfect person, and I promised him that I would never make him feel invisible. I would never make him feel like he was less than. I sent Mom a birth announcement with photos. She sent back a card, one of those generic ones you buy in a pack of 50 with nothing written inside except her signature. Not even a congratulations. Just Eleanor Brooks, in her perfect cursive. Valerie sent nothing at all. But I had my family. I had my shop. I had a life that I had built with my own 2 hands, and it was more than enough. 10 years passed. I kept track of Valerie's life through social media and the occasional update from distant relatives. She had climbed the corporate ladder at some big investment firm in Chicago, married a lawyer named Derek Harrison, who looked exactly like the kind of guy you would expect, and had 2 kids of her own. They lived in a house that was probably worth $3 million and took vacations to places I could not pronounce. Mom moved to a smaller house after selling the family home, though smaller for her still meant 4 bedrooms and a pool. She seemed happy, at least in the photos that Valerie posted on Facebook, always smiling at some fundraiser or country club event, always surrounded by people who probably did not know her at all. I tried to maintain a relationship. I called on birthdays and holidays. Sometimes she answered, sometimes she did not. When she did, the conversations were short and awkward, like talking to a stranger you met once at a party. Once a year, maybe twice, I would drive the 4 hours to visit her. I would bring something I had made, a picture frame or a small table, something to show her what I could do. She would accept it, politely say it was nice, and then I would never see it displayed anywhere in her house. Margaret came with me one of those visits back when Lucas was about 3. She had never met my mother before, and I think she was trying to give her a chance, trying to see the good in her. We stayed for 2 hours. Mom spent most of that time on the phone with Valerie planning some birthday party for one of her kids. She barely looked at Lucas, did not ask to hold him, did not ask about his first words or his first steps, or any of the milestones that grandmothers are supposed to care about. On the drive home, Margaret was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "Nathan, I understand now. I understand why you are the way you are." I asked her what she meant. She said, "You spent your whole life trying to get water from a stone. It is not your fault the stone is dry." That was the last time Margaret came with me to visit my mother. The birthday party incident happened when I was 32. Mom was turning 70, and Valerie was throwing her a big party at some fancy restaurant in Chicago. I was actually invited, probably because it would look bad if Mom's son was not there. I drove 4 hours with a gift I had spent 3 months making. It was a jewelry box carved from black walnut with mother-of-pearl inlay and her initials carved into the top. The hinges were hand-forged brass, the interior lined with velvet I had ordered from France. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever created. I arrived at the restaurant at 7, just like the invitation said. The parking lot was empty. Inside, a waiter told me there was no reservation under Brooks for tonight. I called Valerie. No answer. I called Mom. No answer. Finally, I called a cousin who was supposed to be there, and she sounded surprised to hear from me. "The party was yesterday," she said. "Did nobody tell you Valerie changed the date because of some work thing?" I stood in that empty parking lot, holding my jewelry box, and I laughed. What else could I do? I laughed until I almost cried, and then I got in my truck and drove home. The next day, I called Mom to ask what happened. She answered, sounding annoyed. "Oh yes, the date changed," she said. "I thought Valerie told you. Anyway, you can drop off your gift with the housekeeper if you want. I will be out of town next week. Not an apology, not an explanation. Just drop it off with the housekeeper." I kept the jewelry box. It sits on Margaret's dresser, now holding the earrings I bought her for our 10th anniversary. At least someone appreciates my work. The call came on a Thursday afternoon in early October. I was in my shop sanding a table for a client in Madison when my phone rang with a number I did not recognize. It was Valerie. We had not spoken in over 2 years since a brief and awkward exchange at a funeral for some distant aunt neither of us really knew. "Nathan," she said in a voice that was trying too hard to sound casual, "I thought you should know. Mom has cancer, lung cancer, stage 3. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. Whatever else had happened between Mom and me, she was still my mother. She was still the woman who had given me life, who had raised me in that big cold house, who had shaped me into whoever I had become. "How bad is it?" I asked. "Bad," Valerie said. "The doctors are talking about 8 months to a year. She is starting chemotherapy next week." There was a long pause. I could hear Valerie breathing on the other end, waiting for something. "You should probably come see her," she finally said. "You know, just in case." I told her I would be there tomorrow. That night, I sat down with Margaret and Lucas and told them what was happening. Lucas was only 5, too young to really understand, but he knew something was wrong from the look on my face. Margaret took my hand and said, "What do you want to do?" "I want to be there," I said. "I know she has never been there for me, but I cannot live with myself if I do not try. If something happens and I was not there, I will regret it forever." Margaret nodded. "Then we will figure it out," she said. "Whatever you need." Within a week, we had made arrangements. Margaret would stay in Milwaukee with Lucas for now, keeping things stable at home. I would go to Mom's house, help take care of her, and we would reassess as things developed. I closed my shop, putting a sign on the door that said, "Family emergency, back soon." I had orders pending, clients waiting, but none of that mattered. This was my last chance to have a relationship with my mother. My last chance to maybe finally make her see me. When I arrived at Mom's house, Valerie was there looking stressed and important in one of her power suits. She barely acknowledged me, just handed me a list of medications and doctor's appointments. "I have to get back to Chicago," she said. "Derek has a big case and the kids have school. I will try to come on weekends when I can." And just like that, she was gone. Her Mercedes disappearing down the driveway before I even got my bag out of my truck. Mom was thinner than I remembered, frailer. The cancer and chemo had taken a toll, leaving her skin papery and gray, her once sharp eyes dulled by exhaustion and medication. But she was still my mother. Still had that same way of looking at me like I was someone she could not quite place. "Nathan," she said when I walked into her bedroom, "you did not have to come." "Yes, I did," I said. and I am staying as long as you need me." She did not argue. Maybe she did not have the energy. Or maybe somewhere deep down she was glad I was there. The next 8 months were the hardest of my life. I became my mother's primary caregiver. I drove her to chemotherapy appointments, held her hair back when she vomited, cleaned up after her, when she was too weak to make it to the bathroom. I cooked her meals she could barely eat, spoon-feeding her soup when her hands shook too much to hold the utensil. I sat by her bed in the middle of the night, listening to her breathe, making sure she was still alive. Margaret was a saint through all of this. She brought Lucas to visit every other weekend, driving 4 hours each way so I could see my son. She handled everything at home, paying bills, dealing with clients, keeping our life together while I was gone. Valerie came when she said she would on weekends, but her visits were more performance than substance. She would breeze in on Friday night, spend Saturday posting photos of herself with Mom on social media, and leave Sunday morning with promises to call. She never changed a bedsheet, never sat through a chemotherapy session, never held Mom's hand when the pain got bad. But Mom's eyes still lit up when Valerie walked through the door. She still smiled more in those brief weekend visits than she did all week with me. And I told myself it was okay. I told myself I was not doing this for recognition or praise. I was doing it because it was right. Around month 5, something started to shift. Mom began talking more, sharing memories and stories from her past that I had never heard. She told me about meeting Dad, about their first date at a county fair, where he won her a stuffed bear that she kept until it fell apart. She told me about being pregnant with me, how I used to kick so hard she thought I would break her ribs. She told me about the day I was born, how Dad cried when he held me for the first time. One night she reached out and took my hand. Her fingers were so thin I could feel every bone. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for being here, Nathan." I squeezed her hand and told her there was nowhere else I would rather be. And for a moment, I believed that maybe finally things were changing. Maybe she could finally see me. That hope lasted exactly 3 weeks. It was a Wednesday afternoon. Mom was feeling better than usual, sitting up in bed and talking on the phone. I was in the hallway about to ask if she wanted some tea when I heard my name. "Do not worry, darling," Mom was saying. "Everything is arranged. The lawyer has the papers all ready. Nathan will get nothing. He was always his father's son, not mine." I stood there frozen, listening to my mother confirm what I had always suspected, that no matter what I did, no matter how much I sacrificed, I would never be enough for her. She laughed at something Valerie said on the other end. "Yes, he is here every day like a loyal dog, but loyalty does not change facts, does it? You are my daughter. You have always been my daughter. He is just a reminder of his father." I walked away before she could finish. I went out to my truck, sat in the driver's seat, and stared at nothing for an hour. Then I went back inside, made her tea, and helped her with her evening medications. Because that is who I am. That is who Dad raised me to be. Someone who does the right thing even when it hurts. Even when no one is watching. Even when it will never be rewarded. Mom passed away on a Saturday morning in June, just as the sun was coming up. I was sitting beside her bed like I had been for the last 3 nights when her breathing changed. It got shallow, then slower, then stopped altogether. I held her hand for a long time after that. I am not sure how long. Eventually, I called the hospice nurse, and then I called Valerie. "She was gone before you got here," I told her. "I am sorry." Valerie arrived 6 hours later. She walked into the bedroom where Mom's body still lay, threw herself across the bed, and wailed. It was the kind of grief you see in movies, dramatic and loud, and somehow not quite real. I watched her from the doorway, feeling nothing. I had done my crying already in the quiet hours when no one could see. I had said my goodbyes night after night, whispered into the darkness while Mom slept. I had nothing left. The funeral was everything Mom would have wanted. Big, expensive, tasteful. Valerie organized the whole thing, picking the flowers and the music and the readings. I just showed up and stood where I was told. There must have been 200 people there. Business associates of Dad's who still remembered the Brooks name. Society women from Mom's various clubs. People who had known her casually and wanted to pay their respects. Valerie gave the eulogy. She talked about what an amazing mother Eleanor Brooks had been. How supportive, how loving, how present. She talked about Sunday dinners and birthday parties, and all the wisdom Mom had shared over the years. I listened and wondered if we had had the same mother. After the funeral, after the reception at some country club, I had never been to, Margaret found me standing alone in the parking lot. "How are you doing?" she asked. "I honestly do not know," I said. "Is it wrong that I feel relieved?" She put her arms around me and held me tight. "It is not wrong," she said. "You have been carrying this for a long time. It is okay to put it down now." 2 weeks later, I got a letter from a law firm in Milwaukee. Gerald Morrison, attorney at law. It was regarding the estate of Eleanor Brooks, and my presence was required at a reading of the will on the 23rd of July at 2 in the afternoon. I knew what was coming. I had heard Mom's phone call months ago. I knew I was getting nothing, but I went anyway because I had to see it through to the end. Because after everything, I still wanted to look my mother's final wishes in the eye and accept them with dignity. The office was exactly what you would expect from an old money lawyer. Dark wood paneling, leather chairs, oil paintings of hunting dogs. Gerald Morrison was a white-haired man in his 70s, with glasses perched on his nose and a voice like warm honey. Valerie was already there when I arrived, sitting in one of the leather chairs with Derek beside her. She was dressed in black, still playing the grieving daughter, but her eyes were sharp and alert. She smelled blood in the water. I sat down across from them with Margaret beside me. We did not speak. There was nothing to say. Mr. Morrison cleared his throat and began reading. The will was straightforward at first. Small bequests to various charities Mom had supported, some jewelry to Valerie, some art pieces to a museum. Then came the main event. I leave the remainder of my estate, Mr. Morrison read, valued at approximately $30 million to my daughter, Valerie Brooks Harrison, to be used at her discretion. Valerie smiled. It was a small smile, careful, but I saw the triumph in it. She glanced at me just for a second, and there was something in her eyes that looked a lot like satisfaction. Derek patted her arm. "Well-deserved," he murmured. I said nothing. I just sat there looking at my hands, thinking about all those months of care, all those nights sitting by her bed, all the love I had given that was never returned. "Well," Valerie said, starting to rise from her chair, "I think we are done here." "Not quite," Mr. Morrison said. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out another envelope. This was sealed. There is a codicil, a secret amendment to the will added 6 months ago. I was instructed to read it only in the presence of both children. Valerie froze halfway out of her chair. "What kind of codicil?" Derek demanded. Mr. Morrison broke the seal on the envelope. "This," he said, "changes everything." The room went very quiet. Valerie sat back down slowly, her face suddenly pale. Derek leaned forward, his lawyer instincts clearly on high alert. Mr. Morrison adjusted his glasses and began to read. "I, Eleanor Brooks, being of sound mind and body, do hereby add the following amendment to my last will and testament. This codicil is to be kept sealed and private until after my death, and is to be read only in the presence of both my children." He paused, looking at each of us over his glasses, then continued. "I have lived my life with many regrets. Chief among them is the way I treated my son Nathan. I allowed my grief over losing Richard to blind me to the child we created together. I saw too much of his father in him, and rather than cherishing that reminder, I resented it. I pushed him away. I favored Valerie because she was easier, because she reflected me instead of him." Valerie shifted in her chair. "What is this?" she muttered. Mr. Morrison held up a hand and kept reading. "In recent years, I have watched from a distance as Nathan built a life for himself without my help. A good life. A wife who loves him. A son who looks at him the way Nathan used to look at Richard. He has become the man his father always hoped he would be, and he did it entirely on his own. When I became ill, I wondered who would come. Who would put their life on hold to care for a woman who had given them so little? The answer revealed everything I needed to know." The lawyer cleared his throat before continuing. "Therefore, I am adding the following condition to my bequest. My daughter Valerie will only inherit my estate if during my illness she provided at least 50% of my primary care. To verify this condition, I have retained the services of Hartwell Investigative Services, who have been documenting and recording the care provided by both of my children since my diagnosis." Valerie stood up so fast her chair nearly fell over. "That is insane," she said. "You cannot be serious." Derek was already reaching for his phone. "This will never hold up in court," he said. "Diminished capacity, undue influence. We will have this thrown out within a week." Mr. Morrison calmly pulled a thick folder from his desk. "This," he said, "is the report from Hartwell Investigative Services. Photographs, video, daily logs, everything documented and time-stamped." He opened the folder and laid out several photographs. In one, Valerie was at a spa getting a massage dated 3 weeks after Mom's diagnosis. In another, she was on a beach somewhere tropical dated during what I remembered as an especially bad round of chemotherapy. According to this report, Mr. Morrison said Valerie Brooks Harrison visited her mother a total of 12 days during the 8 months of her illness. Nathan Brooks was present for 231 days. Valerie's face had gone from pale to red. "This is entrapment," she hissed. "This is some kind of scheme. Someone manipulated her into this." Mr. Morrison shook his head. "I can assure you the will and this codicil were executed when your mother was in full possession of her faculties. We have documentation from her physician confirming her mental competency at the time of signing. We also have video of the signing itself, witnessed by 2 independent parties." He turned to another page in the document and continued reading. "To my son Nathan, I leave my entire estate. Not because I was a good mother to him, because I was not, but because he was a good son to me, despite every reason not to be. He sat with me when I was sick. He held my hand when I was afraid. He showed me love I did not deserve. I felt Margaret's hand find mine and squeeze it tight. To Valerie, I leave the jewelry and personal items I have already given her over the years. I hope she will someday understand that love is not measured in dollars, but in presence, in sacrifice, in showing up." Valerie slammed her hand down on the desk. "This is not over," she screamed. "I will contest this. I will prove she was not in her right mind. I will prove that Nathan somehow manipulated her into this." "You are welcome to try," Mr. Morrison said calmly, "but I should warn you that the evidence is quite comprehensive. Your mother was very thorough." He pulled out one more photograph and slid it across the desk. It showed Valerie at what looked like a birthday party, smiling and holding a glass of champagne. The timestamp showed it was the same day Mom had her worst reaction to chemotherapy, the day I had to rush her to the emergency room at 3 in the morning. She knew, I said quietly. It was the first time I had spoken since we sat down. She knew exactly who we were. Mr. Morrison nodded. She did, and she wanted to make it right in the only way she knew how. Valerie was crying now, but they were not sad tears. They were angry tears, frustrated tears, the tears of someone who had lost a game they thought was already won. Derek grabbed her arm. "We are leaving," he said. "We will be in touch about the contest." They stormed out without another word, slamming the door behind them. The sound echoed through the office like a gunshot. And then it was quiet. Mr. Morrison gathered his papers and looked at me with something like sympathy. "There is one more thing," he said. "Your mother left a letter. For your eyes only." He handed me a sealed envelope with my name written on it in Mom's handwriting. I stared at it for a long moment, not sure if I wanted to open it. Finally, I slid it into my pocket. "Thank you," I said, "for everything." He nodded. "Your mother made many mistakes in her life, but in the end she tried to correct the biggest one. I hope you can find some peace in that." Margaret and I walked out of that office into the summer sunshine. The world looked the same as it had an hour ago, but everything had changed. $30 million. I was worth $30 million. But that was not what I was thinking about. I was thinking about my mother, sitting in that bed for 8 months, watching everything, seeing everything, finally understanding what she had done wrong. I was thinking about the letter in my pocket waiting to be read. I was thinking about my father, and whether somewhere somehow he knew. The weeks after the will reading were strange and surreal. Valerie made good on her threat to contest the will, hiring some high-powered attorney from Chicago who specialized in estate disputes. But Mr. Morrison had been right. The evidence was overwhelming. Mom had covered every angle, anticipated every argument. After 3 months of legal wrangling and tens of thousands of dollars in attorney fees, Valerie finally gave up. She and I have not spoken since that day in the lawyer's office. I do not know if we ever will. Part of me is sad about that. She is still my sister. We shared a childhood, even if it was not a happy one, but another part of me knows that some wounds are too deep to heal. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. I did not change my life much after the inheritance. Oh, I made some improvements. I expanded my workshop, hired 2 young carpenters to help with the bigger projects, bought some equipment I had always wanted. We moved to a bigger house with a yard for Lucas to play in. I paid off our mortgage and set up a college fund for my son. But I still get up every morning and go to my shop. I still work with my hands, still feel the grain of wood under my fingers, still smell the sawdust and the varnish. That is who I am. No amount of money can change that. What I did do was start a foundation in my father's name, the Richard Brooks Trade Scholarship. It provides full funding for young people who want to learn a skilled trade but cannot afford the training. Carpentry, plumbing, electrical work, welding. The kinds of jobs that people look down on, but that build the world we live in. Every year we fund 20 new scholarships. Every year I meet the recipients, shake their hands, tell them about my father, and what he taught me about the dignity of working with your hands. It is the best thing I have ever done with money. The letter from Mom sat unopened in my desk drawer for almost 2 months. I would take it out sometimes, turn it over in my hands, put it back. I was not sure I wanted to know what she had to say. What could she possibly tell me that would change anything? Finally, on a rainy Sunday afternoon, I opened it. Dear Nathan, it began. If you are reading this, then I am gone, and the truth has finally come out. I do not expect your forgiveness, and I am not writing to ask for it. I am writing because I owe you an explanation, even if it is too late for it to matter. When your father died, something inside me broke. Richard was the love of my life, the only man I ever truly loved. And when I looked at you, I saw him. Your hands, your quiet nature, the way you could lose yourself in work for hours. Every day you reminded me of what I had lost. It was easier with Valerie. She was mine. She came from the parts of me that did not include your father. Loving her did not hurt the way loving you did. I know now how wrong that was. How terribly, unforgivably wrong. A mother should not punish her child for being like his father. A mother should cherish that connection, should be grateful for it. But I was too lost in my own grief to see clearly. I watched you from a distance over the years. I saw you struggle, saw you build something from nothing, saw you become a man your father would have been so proud of. And I was proud too, even if I never told you, even if I never showed it. When I got sick, I knew it was my last chance to do something right. I knew Valerie would come when it was convenient, and leave when it was not. I knew you would come and stay. I was testing you in a way. I am not proud of that either, but I needed to see. I needed to know for sure that the son I had pushed away was the person I always suspected he was. You exceeded every expectation. You cared for me with a tenderness I did not deserve. You sat with me through the darkest nights. You never complained, never demanded anything, never threw my years of neglect back in my face. The codicil was not about the money. It was about acknowledgement. It was my way of finally publicly admitting what I should have admitted all along, that you were worthy, that you were loved, that you were always, always my son. I do not expect these words to heal the wounds I caused. Some hurts go too deep for healing, but I hope they bring you some measure of peace. I hope you can look at your own son and know that you will never make the mistakes I made. I hope you can live your life free from the weight of wondering why your mother did not love you. Because I did love you, Nathan. I loved you from the moment you were born, even if I forgot how to show it. Even if I buried it so deep I could not find it myself. Be happy. Build beautiful things. Love your family the way your father loved you. And forgive me if you can. Your mother, Eleanor. I read that letter 3 times before I could see through the tears. Then I put it away and went to find my wife and son. Lucas was playing in the backyard, building a fort out of cardboard boxes. Margaret was sitting on the porch watching him with that smile she gets when she is perfectly content. I sat down beside her and took her hand. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "I think I finally am." She did not ask about the letter. She knew I would tell her when I was ready. That is one of the things I love about her. She never pushes. She just waits and loves and trusts that I will come to her when I need to. That night after Lucas was asleep, I went out to my workshop. I had been working on something for weeks, a project I had not told anyone about. A rocking chair. Not just any rocking chair, but a replica of the one my father and I built together when I was 12. I ran my hands over the smooth armrests, the curved back, the perfect joints. It was not identical to the original. Nothing ever could be, but it was close. Close enough to remember. I sat down in that chair, and I rocked slowly in the quiet darkness. And I thought about my father, about the lessons he taught me, about patience and craftsmanship and the dignity of work, about being the kind of person who does the right thing even when no one is watching. I thought about my mother, about the letter she had written, about the regret she had carried for so many years. I did not forgive her completely. Maybe I never will, but I understood her a little better now. I understood that grief can twist, People can make them do things they know are wrong, can blind them to the love that is right in front of them. And I thought about my son sleeping in his bed dreaming whatever dreams 5-year-olds dream. I thought about the man I wanted him to become, the lessons I wanted to teach him. Not just about woodworking, though I would teach him that too, but about kindness, about perseverance, about showing up for the people you love, even when they do not show up for you. Because that is the legacy I want to leave. Not money, not things, but the knowledge that being good is its own reward. That the people who love you quietly are often the ones who love you most. That sometimes, even when you think no one is watching, someone is, and the truth has a way of revealing itself in the end. If you are watching this and you are the one who always gives and never receives, please do not give up. Your worth is not measured by what others give you. It is measured by who you choose to be. If you have ever felt invisible in your own family, I see you. If you have ever wondered why your love was not enough, I understand. And if you are waiting for someone to finally recognize your value, hold on. Sometimes it takes a lifetime. Sometimes it takes a secret clause in a will. But the truth always comes out in the end. To Valerie, wherever she is now, I hope she finds peace. I hope she finds a kind of happiness that money cannot buy. And I hope she looks at her own children someday and chooses to be present, really present in their lives. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you in any way, I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me about a time you felt unseen and how you found your way through it. If this story moved you, please hit that like button so more people can find it. Subscribe to this channel for more stories about family forgiveness and finding your way. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, please share it with them. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for listening. May you find peace in your own journey, and may the people who matter most always see you for who you truly are. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Until next time.